WCW nWo Spring Stampede 1998 come to us all the way from Denver, Colorado, April 19th, 1998. Now there were 4 titles on the line at Spring Stampede, including a Ravens rules match between US heavyweight title holder DDP as he took on Raven in an absolute all-out crazy Ravens rules match for that US heavyweight title, a match which included everything plus the kitchen sink. Plus we had a match for the World Heavyweight title between champion Sting as he took on challenger Macho Man Randy Savage with a controversial ending. Add to that, we had 2 brothers coming face to face with each other in the ring, a great Goldberg match, and a wild first ever bat match, and you had a stampede on your hands from start to finish. Let's get to all the action. So in the opening match of the night we had Saturn with Kidman taking on Goldberg. Now Goldberg, who was undefeated with a 73-0 win-loss record coming into this match, was set to face one of his toughest opponents yet. Add to that the Flock's standard interference in other Flock members' matches, and the odds were stacked against WCW's newest phenom. Kidman went down quickly as Goldberg threw him to the outside on top of Saturn. Goldberg then ended up slammed into the mat after a Saturn springboard moonsault. Keeping up the offense, Saturn body splashed Goldberg and delivered a vicious head scissors takedown to Goldberg. Diverting 2 painful submission holds, Goldberg picked up steam and Saturn and drove his shoulders into the Flock members' midsection, then quickly delivered a powerful enziguri kick. The dreaded spear knocked the wind out of Saturn, who amazingly was able to continue, albeit winded and weakened. Seeing one of their own in trouble, the Flock immediately jumped into the ring, but was stopped by the man determined to keep his record unblemished. Saturn was able to slap on the devastating rings of Saturn, and it looked like Goldberg's winning streak was coming to an end. But this amazing athlete was able to somehow get out of the hold and jackhammer Saturn into the mat for his 74th straight win in a row. Winner here, Goldberg, by pinfall. The next up we had Chavo Guerrero Jr. He came out with Uncle Eddie Guerrero as he took on the Ultimo Dragon. And the deal to this match was, if Chavo beat the Dragon, Eddie would give up his attempts to teach Chavo his motto, cheat to win, of course. However, if Chavo were to lose the match, Eddie would ride his nephew twice as hard. The Chavo immediately went for a quick takedown, but Dragon used his patented handstand on the top turnbuckle to drop kick the wind out of Chavo. The Dragon and Guerrero exchanged a number of submission holds, among them a Dragon reverse figure 4. Guerrero was able to counter with a deathlock and a bridge to a rear chinlock, but the Dragon wisely reached the ropes to break the hold. Meanwhile, Eddie at ringside was shouting words of wisdom to his nephew, none of which were being heeded. Wrestling the match cleanly, Chavo endured a camel clutch and a sleeper hold by the Dragon and managed to resist the urge to tap out to these devastating holds. After enduring an inverted surfboard with a chinlock by the Dragon, Chavo was then a victim of a suplex and an Asai moonsault on the outside, where Uncle Eddie screamed at a dazed Chavo to get up and fight like a man. A suicide flip over the top rope by Chavo connected with the Dragon's shoulder on the outside. Back in the ring, Chavo accidentally low-blowed the Dragon, injuring him. Eddie, seeing the opportunity for Chavo, demanded that his nephew take advantage of the situation and go after the ailing Dragon. Chavo, however, true to himself, refused and waited until the Dragon had sufficiently recovered to continue the match. The Dragon was able to slap on the sleeper and win by submission moments later. After the match, a frantic Eddie Guerrero screamed, "What do I have to do?" to Chavo as they argued in the ring. One thing is for sure, Chavo's sportsmanship had just won him double trouble from Uncle Eddie. Want to hear Ultimo Dragon by submission? So next up was an awesome matchup for the TV title. It was challenger Chris Benoit taking on the TV champion Booker T. This match having no time limit, as the two had wrestled to time limits in previous weeks on Nitro. Twice Benoit and Booker T wrestled to the time limit. This time they were back in the ring with no time constraints, allowing the two to battle it out for as long as it took to declare a winner. Both men were focused and intent on winning the matchup, as Benoit worked over Booker T's leg and Booker T used his Harlem sidekick to send Benoit to the outside. A ton of sharp kicks to the champ by Benoit weakened Booker T, who later refused to submit to a Benoit rear chinlock. As Benoit took it to the limit, going up top and headbutting Booker T, victory was nearly his, but Booker T had his leg on the rope. A set of rolling German suplexes by Benoit left Booker T weak and in daze, and a Benoit back suplex off a top rope did even more damage to the champ. Benoit, however, came down hard on his own head, slowing his pace. An accidental axe kick to the official by Booker T proved to be Benoit's downfall, as he applied the crippler crossface on the champ and Booker T, in an attempt to reach the ropes, tapped out. The official was still not awake and saw none of the goings-on, and Booker T managed a Harlem sidekick on Benoit for the win. This match, with its controversial ending, will surely be talked about for quite some time to come. Rude and Neidhart were handcuffed to each other by a policeman to keep each from interfering with the matchup before the bell rang. In the ring, the Bulldog went all out, concentrating much of his effort on Hennig's brace knee. Hennig took amazing punishment before rallying, but was quickly stopped by the Bulldog, who slammed Hennig's head into the turnbuckle 10 times as Rude tried desperately to get free and help his ally. The policeman was then seen being choked by Neidhart after throwing the handcuff key to Rude. As Neidhart fought off the cop, we discovered it was none other than the NWO's Vincent, dressed as the legit officer who did the handcuffing. Rude was able to uncuff himself, cuff Neidhart to the ring post, and trip the Bulldog, giving Hennig just the opportunity he needed for a roll-up and the win. After the match, bedlam ensued as Rude, Hennig and Vincent went after the Bulldog and Neidhart with fists and the policeman's nightstick. Winner here, Curt Hennig by pinfall. Okay, so next up we had the Cruiserweight title on the line. It was champion Chris Jericho taking on challenger Prince Iaukea. Jericho dedicated this match to Dean Malenko, proclaiming himself once again a man of 1,004 holds. Of course, Malenko and Jericho in their feud at this stage in WCW. Locking up quickly, Iaukea wisely delivered a hard-running clothesline and a headlock. After a vertical suplex by Jericho to the Prince and several Jericho kicks, a rear chinlock was applied, but Iaukea refused to submit to the painful submission hold. Jericho, showboating on the top rope, blew a kiss to all his fans, but ended up on the hurting end of an Iaukea kick in the face. After a thwarted lion tamer attempt by Jericho, both men ended up on the outside of the ring after going up top and toppling onto the mat surrounding the ring. Once again, a lion tamer attempt was thwarted by Iaukea, causing the champ to jump up and down in frustration. After an Iaukea Northern Lights suplex, Jericho managed to get to the ropes, saving himself from a loss. A third lion tamer attempt proved to be a charm, as Jericho held on tight to Iaukea mid-ring and waited for the tap out that eventually came. After the match, Jericho, in what was becoming a tradition at that time, took Iaukea sarong as a souvenir of his victory. Winner here, guys, Chris Jericho by submission, and he holds on to his Cruiserweight title. Okay, next up we had Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell as they took on Rick Steiner and Lex Luger. Before the bell rang, Bagwell claimed to have an arm injury which prevented him from wrestling. However, when J.J. Dillon brought out a noted doctor into the ring, and Bagwell, upset with Dillon's obvious mistrust of him, grabbed Dillon with his injured arm, the match was on despite Scott Steiner and Bagwell's protests. Rick Steiner and Bagwell started out the match, and Scott Steiner managed to jump in and attack his brother from behind, then scurry out of the ring. Finally, Rick and Scott, brother to brother, were in the ring alone. Scott slammed his brother and went for a cover, but Rick quickly kicked out, and Rick, who had been in the ring the entire match, tried in vain to reach and outstretch Luger's hand to make the tag. Bagwell and Scott Steiner took turns dishing out the punishment to a weakened Rick Steiner until Rick managed to make the hot tag to Luger, who cleaned house. Clotheslining both opponents, Rick, perhaps feeding off his anger and disappointment with Scott, rallied and chased Scott to the back, intent on showing his little brother what punishment was all about, as Buff took a ride on the rack and submitted. The winners here, guys, Rick Steiner and Lex Luger. Okay, in a special unadvertised match, the two most dangerous luchadors went head-to-head. Psychosis immediately went after La Parka with a slap and a flying head scissors, sending La Parka to the outside. A suicide dive by Psychosis to La Parka flattened both men. La Parka, showing his versatility, delivered an awe-inspiring split-legged moonsault off the top rope to his opponent. Psychosis, not to be outdone, Frankensteined La Parka off the top rope, then went up top for a twisting corkscrew moonsault onto the chairman. La Parka stood on the middle rope and showboated for the cheering fans, but Psychosis wisely knocked him off the ropes and covered him for the win. We think La Parka will think twice before strutting his stuff until well after the match is won from now on. Want to hear, guys? Psychosis by pinfall. In the first ever WCW bat match, the rules were simple. The first one who got the bat, which hung from a pole in the corner of the ring, would be allowed to use it on his opponents. Piper immediately went for the bat, but Hogan pulled him down and delivered several stiff punches to his head. There was nothing clean about this match, as the opponents pulled hair, punched, and headbutted their way to the bat. The Giant managed to do what many fans have wanted to do for a long time. He spanked Hogan in mid-ring. Double teaming was the order of the day, as Hogan and Nash, who had been having very obvious personal problems in past weeks, surprised us all by working as a cohesive team, took shots at their opponents from the apron whenever the ref's back was turned. By the 10-minute mark in the match, all four men were in the ring, brawling. Piper managed to sleeper hold on Hogan at the 11-minute mark, then climbed the pole, helped by his teammate, the Giant, and snagged the bat. The Disciple, Hogan's personal bodyguard, then came ringside with a bat of his own and threw it to Hogan, who slammed the Giant and went after Piper. Bats were flying as the Disciple managed to make sure Hogan had a bat of his own throughout, and each man took his turn getting clocked by a slugger from the other side. At last, Hogan took a swing at Piper and nailed him, pinning the Rowdy One for the win. After, Hogan signalled for Nash to set up Piper for another blow, but to the surprise of many, Piper pulled out and Hogan, a slight smile on his face, slammed Nash with the bat. So Hollywood Hogan and Kevin Nash may have won this match, but of course this was really the first instance where Hollywood Hogan and Kevin Nash would split, and the NWO, not long after this, would split into two factions, with NWO Hollywood, of course, led by Hogan, and the Wolfpack led by Kevin Nash. Okay, next up we had a really awesome match here, Diamond Dallas Page versus Raven for the US title, of course held by DDP going in. These two would have some awesome matches in WCW, and this was just another one, as Spring Stampede was really starting to heat up for the night. Now, talk about the deck being stacked against someone. DDP immediately had to deal with Sick Boy, who jumped into the ring to help his flockmate gain an early advantage. Page delivered a slingshot to a crossbody block, flattening both Raven and Sick Boy in one fluid move. From there, the brawl, a no disqualification contest, went from pillar to post. First up, a steel trash can became DDP's ally as he clocked Raven with it. Across the ramp, Page suplexed Raven into the internet website table, and Raven, not to be outdone, smashed the champ over the head and sent him onto a table. Nothing was sacred, as ropes, ring steps, props, and even a kitchen sink were used in this anything goes match. Kidman attempted to help Raven by jumping into the ring, but accidentally flattened his leader instead. Sick Boy hit the mark, though, when he slammed DDP with a crutch, leaving him writhing in pain on the mat. Sick Boy hit the mark, though, when he slammed DDP with a crutch, leaving him writhing in pain on the mat. Hammer ended up flattening Raven accidentally as well, and the wily DDP took advantage of the mistake by covering Raven. Amazingly, the flock leader managed to kick out of a 2 count. Reese chokeslammed DDP, but the champ refused to let it get the best of him and kicked out of a Raven cover. A stop sign was thrown to Raven, but Page managed to wrestle it away and slammed the flock with it. Kidman was graced with a diamond cutter as DDP fought for his belt and his very life. An unidentified crew member clocked an unsuspecting DDP in the back with the steel stop sign, and Raven, taking every advantage, DDT'd the champ for the pin and the US title. We would soon find out that the crew member was another in the latest of recruits to the flock. Of course, that was Horace Hogan, or Horace Boulder, whatever you want to call him. But the winner here, guys, was Raven by pinfall. He won the US title, but he probably wishes he didn't, because unfortunately the next night he had to take on Goldberg, and that was where Goldberg's reign began as the US champion on Nitro the very next night. Okay, guys, it was the main event of the night. It was Sting. He had won the WCW World Heavyweight title off Hollywood Hogan at Super Brawl just a couple of months earlier. This match was also earlier in the night made a no disqualification match. It was Sting, the champion, taking on the challenger, Macho Man Randy Savage. A pretty awesome match here to top off the night. An injured Savage, battered from the hit-and-run Viper a couple of weeks before by Hogan, of course, if you remember that one, guys, back on Nitro, boldly went into the ring and fought the fight of his life. Even before the bell had rung, Savage was all over Sting, throwing the champ to the outside. Sting managed to throw Savage into the safety rail on the outside, and the two brawled onto the set. Sting managed to suplex on Savage and then stopped a top ring double axe handle attempt by Savage. The official managed to get himself sandwiched between the two men and went out like a light. Capitalizing, Liz slammed Sting on the back with a metal chair and ended up on the bad end of a Stinger splash as Savage ducked out of the way and Sting slammed into Liz. Savage then got the chair and went after the champ with it, but was stopped from covering Sting by Hogan, who ran into the ring to keep his archenemy, Savage, from winning his title. Sting managed a Scorpion Death Drop on Savage, but the ref was still seeing stars and was unable to make the count. Kevin Nash ran into the ring and powerbombed Sting, pulling Savage over Sting. Nash then revived the ref, who made the 3 count and gave the world title to the Macho Man. The ref managed to weakly raise a badly injured Savage's hand in victory as Nash smiled, knowing Hogan, who had turned against him in their tag match, would be livid. Indeed, Hogan and the Disciple ran out on the ramp, and Hogan ended the show by screaming, "You can't do that, that's my belt," to Nash, who obviously could do that and did. The NWO continued to crumble before our eyes as Nash and Hogan stared each other down. The winner here, guys, new WCW World Heavyweight Champion Macho Man Randy Savage. So yeah, really enjoyed this pay-per-view. Thought this was a really cool pay-per-view. It was not long after this, in the coming months, that the WWF would actually surpass Nitro on the ratings and start to do a lot better than WCW. But this was still a fairly strong time for WCW. They were starting to lose their run, but this was a really good pay-per-view. So some of the standout matches of the night, the first match with Saturn taking on Goldberg, that was a really awesome match. Saturn really pushed him. You may have even thought Saturn was going to get the win at one stage during the match, he fought so well. But so Goldberg was really tested, and it was a really awesome match, really good match, that one. Another awesome match, of course, Chris Benoit versus Booker T. They were having some awesome matches at this time, and best of 7 series matches and all that sort of stuff around about this time in WCW. No matter what Benoit did, one of the best performers in the ring at the time could not get a title in WCW. Of course, later he would become world champion, tag team champion, and grab multiple championships in WCW later on, but at this stage he couldn't win a dime. This was another cool match. They had the unadvertised match with the Parka and Psychosis. That was cool. That was a cool match as well. The bat match was cool as well. Probably could have been a wee bit better, but it was still good. Of course, we had the turn with Hogan turning on Nash at the end, so definitely worth a watch as well. Okay, we also had DDP versus Raven. These guys were having awesome matches at this stage in WCW, and they had everything in this match: stop signs, bull ropes, and they even actually literally had a kitchen sink in the ring as well. So this was a really awesome matchup. Yeah, WCW had some really cool matches like this on their big pay-per-views and around this time, and this was no exception. Really, really cool match. And of course, the main event with Sting and Savage was also good. They brought on the outside and threw each other into hay bales, and the whole Spring Stampede set up there, and and the whole controversy with Nash coming out at the end and helping out Savage to win. A really good match here, which topped off a really good pay-per-view, really strong pay-per-view, I thought. Definitely recommend to check it out on the WWE Network. It's definitely worth a watch. And cheers heaps, guys, for checking out this review, Spring Stampede 98, and be sure to check out my other WCW looking back at vids as well. So if you like this video, as always, give it a big thumbs up, always helps, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers for tuning in.